Welcome back to Press Review. Let's start by taking a look at today's front pages in the Middle East. Starting in the UAE, the Gulf News leads reporting that gunmen fighting Iraqi forces seized additional towns west of Baghdad as the US and Russia stepped up diplomatic efforts to halt the nation's slide towards a sectarian civil war. The paper also reports that Israeli troops shot dead a mentally ill Palestinian who approached them in a West Bank refugee camp yesterday, while another Palestinian was killed in violent confrontations in the city of Ramallah. The Jerusalem Post reports that IDF spokesperson said that Israel is considering its moves after losing its first casualty to a cross-border missile strike on the Golan Heights from the Syria civil war. The paper also reports that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Washington's approach to the fluid situation in Iraq should be to try simultaneously to weaken both Iran and the ISIS. From Saudi Arabia, the Arab News reports that Saudi authorities have foiled an attempt to smuggle 526 kilograms of cocaine into the kingdom through the Jeddah Islamic port, coming from a South American country. The paper also reports that militants have captured two border crossings, one along the frontier with Jordan and the other with Syria, security and military officials said as they press on with their offensive in one of Iraq's most restive regions. The Egypt Independent reports that lawyer of the families of Egyptian drivers kidnapped in Libya has said the drivers kidnapped since Sunday morning has increased to 150 drivers, with kidnappers demanding the release of Libyan convicts detained in Egypt. The paper also reports that South Korean troops were engaged in a shootout yesterday with a conscript soldier who had killed 5 comrades in a grenade and gun attack the previous night. And from Beirut, the Daily Star reports that Interior Minister Nouhad al-Mashnou expressed support for Speaker Nabih Berri's move to boost the number of security forces in order to help fight terrorism. The paper also reports that Lebanese authorities confiscated usable rocket-propelled grenades, automatic rifles and ammunition during a raid in the Beirut neighborhood of Za'al-Blat. And now let's take a look at the top Middle East news from papers here in the UK. The Guardian leads Middle East news reporting that the Australian government said it would try and intervene to help the Australian journalist Peter Greste, who has been jailed in Egypt with his Al Jazeera colleagues for his work in the country. The paper says the Foreign Minister Julie Bishop says the government was shocked and appalled by the severity of the 7-year sentence handed to Greste when he was imprisoned, along with his colleagues Mohammed Fahmy and Bahir Mohammed after being convicted of aiding the blacklisted Muslim Brotherhood. The Independent reports that Sunni insurgents have seized control of Iraq's western border. Officials have confirmed as the army struggles to overcome a strengthening assault by ISIS militants. The paper says the border crossings seized at the weekend include 1 to Jordan and 2 to Syria, giving the Islamist group a strategic advantage in the supply to and exchange of weaponry with fighters in Syria. And now let's have a look at the top Middle East news in international papers. The New York Times reports that as Iraqi army forces try to rally on the outskirts of Baghdad after 2 weeks of retreat, it has become increasingly clear to Western officials that the army will continue to suffer losses in its fight with Sunni militants and will not soon retake the ground it has ceded. The paper says recent assessments by Western officials and military experts indicate that about a quarter of Iraq's military forces are combat ineffective, its air force is minuscule, morale among troops is low, and its leadership suffers from widespread corruption. From Germany, the Deutsche Welle reports that US Secretary of State John Kerry arrived in Baghdad on Monday, where he is expected to push Iraq's Shiite Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki to form a more inclusive government as Sunni Islamist militants threaten to partition the country. The paper adds that State Department spokesperson Jen Psaki said that Kerry and Maliki will discuss actions the US is taking to assist Baghdad in its fight against the ISIS. And finally, China's Global Times reports that Palestinian analysts say that the main purpose of the ongoing Israeli military operation in the West Bank is to undermine the newborn Palestinian unity government by weakening the Islamic Hamas movement. The paper says analysts believe that the crackdown on Hamas was significant when the Israeli army detained top Hamas leaders and stormed its political, social, and economic institutions. And for more updates, please visit our website on levant.tv. Thanks for watching Press Review. Be sure to join us again tomorrow, and bye for now.